Welcome to Mental Mastery, where we interview the world's greatest minds on what it takes to live an epic life.
I'm your host, Max Weigand. On today's show, I'm joined by UCLA professor and positive psychologist, Emily vanSonnenberg. After surviving a horrific car crash, she found her love for positive psychology and, while still an undergraduate student, created and taught the first UCLA course titled Happiness. She then went on to pursue a master's degree in positive psychology and has worked with such prominent psychologists such as Sonja Lyubomirsky and the founder of positive psychology, Martin Seligman. In addition to lecturing at several universities on happiness, motivation, and meaningful work, Emily also works with individuals and teams to increase both performance and enjoyment in life. So Emily, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, Max. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
That's awesome. So excited for this. I mean, we're talking about before already, so really excited.
Yeah.
Now, you have such a unique perspective on positive psychology. And one of the most interesting things that I found while researching you was that before you actually went into this field of positive psychology, you actually worked in professional acting for a while. So, and you wrote about like how that shaped kind of your self-control and your emotional intelligence. So what are some lessons that you took away from that?
Wow. Great question, Max. So from acting, and you're really digging out my history here, aren't you?
Yeah, I was looking at everything all over the internet.
You know, I think that acting taught me something that psychology can only teach intellectually, and that's compassion. And there's a lot of research in psychology about compassion for the self and for others. But I got to say that the number one thing that I think I learned as an actor through my training was how to truly put myself in another person's shoes, how to truly feel empathy and compassion. And in terms of the self-control, that's a big lesson to learn when it comes to how much of another person's feelings do you feel, and when do you shut off from feeling it? When does it become harmful to you, to the self? Can you be too compassionate? Sure, because if it brings you down, yeah. So I think knowing one's limits is important, and learning that through acting was quite helpful, actually. I hope that makes sense.
I believe that. Yeah, for sure. So the way I understand it is like you kind of think and act yourself to feel a certain way, right? Whether it's happiness and excitement or sadness or anger, whatever. So do you think that, and then over time, as we like repeat that process over and over again, do you think there's a point where we start adapting to that, where kind of neuroplasticity takes place when we feel these emotions over and over and over again? Do you think there's a point where like it can either be in a positive way, we can kind of start acting like a better self, or also as a worse self? Do you think there's
sure.
anything
I do.
to that?
I think, it's so important every day, I think, to be mindful of what you choose to engage in, what you choose to surround yourself with, what you put in your body, because what you do creates habits, and 80% of what we do each day is a result of habit. So we're not that mindful and conscious, even if we try to be. So here's the deal: is that when it comes to feeling how you want to feel, and in terms of acting, I'm not a believer in act how. Like just put a smile on your face. That's not how I approached acting. I studied sensory and some method acting, which was actually use your memories to create a sensation in the body. So that does end up working neurochemically, and it can end up creating new neural pathways in the brain. So if you're, studying a character for 6 months, and I would study really dark characters for 6 months, the same character, for 6 months,
Wow.
5 days a week. And, if you don't keep yourself in check, you can really go and become that, you change your neural pathways. It's the same thing if you wake up every day and you say, geez, I'm so grateful that I just get to wake up today. That starts to retrain your brain. And so in terms of acting, I don't say like I'm not a believer in fake it till you make it. I really am not. I think that it covers up a lot of important information within the self. So, but I do think it's important to know what you want to experience and feel What is the experience you want to feel in your body? And then you can bring yourself back to a time in your life where you felt that experience, or you can just imagine that experience in your body. Like, use your brilliant brains, people. You know what I mean? We have imaginations. We can create made up stuff. So use it to go there and then allow the sensation to fill the body. And that's acting, and that's being too. Just being a human.
I love that idea of just kind of like embracing it with your whole body and really imagining like what you want to feel like.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, when we ask each other, how are you doing? We base that on a sensory experience in our body and a cognitive experience in our mind. So there are two ways that we evaluate our life and our current state. And most people are sensory feeling beings. We can smell, see, touch, feel, and taste. And we're constantly responding to that. And our bodies are constantly responding to that. And so much of the error that I see when people make decisions is that they make decisions simply based on the cognitive, what they think they want, not how they actually feel. So for example, it's like the next time you want to go on vacation and you go, oh man, I really want to go to Athens. I've been wanting to go to Athens and see all the ruins and all that. But if I were to say to you, what do you want to experience? What do you need in your body right now? And you say relaxation. Maybe Athens is relaxing for some people, but it's really busy. So maybe your body, maybe you need something else. And so I think it's really important that people kind of get out of their heads and start asking their body, like, what do I want to experience?
Love that. So is this something that acting taught you, to really listen into your body and listen to how you feel?
Yes. It taught me to become 100% aware of every sensation. And my yoga practice has also helped me with that too, to learn how to honor and recognize what different sensations are in the body, and also to honor and recognize what different thoughts are in the mind, and to know that thoughts are just made up ideas. They come and go the same way a sensation comes and goes. So if you can become a real observer of all these things that are fleeting in life, like everything, someone cutting you off in traffic, joy, all these different things that are fleeting. If you can become aware of your own center amidst this crazy, bustling world, then you're really in your truth.
Love that. And we talked about information before we started recording this episode. So can you tell me a little bit more about how we can kind of view emotions as simple information entering our body?
Yeah, sure. So emotions. Emotion means, actually, in Latin, translates to energy in motion. And I think that that's a very helpful way to initially discuss and think about emotions. So let's talk about the emotion of what's a good emotion or an emotion you want to explore. It can be any emotion.
Passion is great.
Okay. So let's talk about passion. What does passion feel like for you, Max?
Oh, I guess it's this inside feeling of like really like it's sort of excitement about something, but it goes a little deeper, right? Like you really want to like learn about this and get to know like whatever it is. Like you want to experience it over and over and over again.
Right.
It's
So in that passion, there's some kind of energy moving through you that's high. There's fire in it, kind of. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you've got a fire inside of you that's been lit. There's curiosity, which is a character strength, but you're captivated cognitively, intellectually in some way. And then you've put that curiosity in your body as well. So you've really married the two. Now, when you notice that you're feeling passion, I think it's really important to understand that your body is a vessel for these emotions. So that's what an actor looks at. They have an instrument. They're a vessel. Their body is a vessel to house all these emotions. Same with athletes, professional athletes. Their bodies are these vessels to go and produce these sometimes really magical kind. I mean, you look at Michael Jordan, you look at these LeBron James, you look at all these basketball players. I mean, they have really begun to understand their bodies. They know every way it works, every way it doesn't work, What makes it come alive? What makes it tired? Same thing. So I think that if a person can start to look at emotions as, this is just an energy that's traveling through me. I am not the energy, but I can feel this energy. I think that's really important, because then you can become sort of a director of what you feel instead of becoming a victim to what you feel. So if let's say a person feels sadness, okay? Oftentimes sadness gets a bad rap in our culture. And that's too bad, in my opinion, because sadness is just information. It doesn't mean anything until a human gives it meaning. Same as joy. It doesn't mean anything until a person gives it meaning. So it's like looking at divorce. I use this as an example that I teach in my classes a lot, which is how we choose to perceive events in life really is a big indicator of how we are going to end up experiencing our lives, how we're going to rate our lives, how we're going to say if we're happy, unhappy, fulfilled, unfulfilled, satisfied, dissatisfied. And so if you look at divorce, and let's say there's a mother, a father, and a child, one child. So let's say you ask the mother, how do you feel at being divorced? And she goes, wow, I feel great. I'm free.
I'm excited.
Yeah, right. And let's say you ask the husband, the father.
Hey, I'm excited.
And he says,
top of the world.
This is the most devastating thing of my life. It's horrible. Okay. And then you ask the child, what do you think? And the child goes, well, geez, I really liked having dinner with both my parents, but I have 2 houses now and I get twice as many toys. Just give them a little time, but you know what I mean? But,
yeah.
But the point I'm making there is that divorce, this concept, it doesn't mean it's nothing good or bad until humans make a judgment or place a meaning on it. And that's with every single emotion. Emotions mean nothing. It's just information to listen to. It's like a stoplight. It's red lights, yellow lights, and green lights. So if you feel passion, I'm going to say that's a green light. Keep doing what you're doing. And if you got anger, then that's maybe a yellow light or a red light. And what I'm going to say is, hey, this is helpful because it's telling you, hey, something that someone is doing right now feels like a violation of my boundaries. Let me look at this. Let me see what's going on here, because this doesn't feel right. And therefore, it gives you the information that you need to move forward and change it so that you can make it feel right. So it's all about just the emotion is teaching you about alignment. It's teaching you how to give yourself more homeostasis, which is a big concept and a really important concept in understanding how humans function, understanding how animals function. We always go back to a homeostasis, which is our base level. And the world, our emotions are constantly trying to tell us, listen to me. I'm trying to get you back to your ideal state. Look at me. Look at me. If you feel passion in doing this podcast, I'd say do more.
Yeah, for sure. All day long. Yeah, that's the goal now. Like every single day.
Right? So
yeah.
I hope that explanation of my thoughts on emotions makes sense. They're just signals.
Oh, for sure. No, I love this idea of like looking at everything as kind of, I mean, I call it feedback, you call it information. So really looking at like what am I feeling and why is that, right? Like what's the underlying cause? And then like, what I need to change, what I need to do, or what I need to investigate or ask more about to really learn to understand and then eventually maybe change it. So
Exactly. And I just want to add one thing also, that I think it's really important that information is seen as neutral. It's seen as having no positive or negative value. And I think that what's really important is that as people look at their emotions, that they remember to try to be an observer of their emotions. Don't attach onto the emotion. That's what gets a person in trouble.
Yeah, well, once you identify with that anger or sadness, whatever, all these automatic feelings sometimes that come up, right? Like automatically, without even like consciously making the decision, like, should I be angry about this? Like, is this really worth having like an argument over whatever? We have these emotions without actually thinking about it. So I think sometimes, yeah, like you said, like viewing them as neutral and deciding like how you want to experience that, how you want to judge that kind of.
Exactly. And not to judge it, actually. Don't judge anything. Like, don't judge anything. Don't judge when you feel good. Don't judge when you feel poorly. Like, just go, okay, that's information. All right. I feel really alive today. Okay, that's information. All right? I feel a lot of gratitude today. That's information. But just don't judge ever how you feel. If you feel sad, just be gentler to yourself. Seriously.
Yeah, big point here. So how do you get into positive psychology in the first place?
All right. So I had a car accident, and after my car accident, I couldn't move. I could move my arms and I could move my mouth and head. But I was in a wheelchair, so I couldn't move my legs, and I was really active. I liked playing sports a lot. And so I was really used to, in my life, being a really sort of kinesthetic, active participant in life. I like to move around. And this really forced me to ask myself to be still, number one, which is not a strength of mine.
That must have been soul crushing.
It was a very different experience, very different. And it was, aside from meeting my angelic soulmate of a husband, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I'm sure he's glad to hear that.
And so I just asked myself some difficult questions, and but largely about meaning and purpose. If my life was spared in this head-on car crash, and the laws of physics don't make sense here, my brother was involved as well, and we shouldn't be alive, but we are. So I had to really sit in a state of humility and wonderment and gratitude and confusion, and not feeling like I didn't understand a lot about life. And that was a really beautiful place to be. I actually feel really great when I am in that place, because the more wonder in the world, the more awareness of how much you don't understand can really makes your mind really open to learning.
That's true.
To exploring and not being afraid to explore. So anyhow, I got really clear that I wanted to go back to school to become a psychologist, because I felt like I knew what made me come alive was being a good friend. And so I wanted to become the best support I could to humans.
So you just wanted to learn more about that?
Yeah, I wanted to create an experience where I could honor a gift, one of the gifts that I was given. And I think every human is innately born with gifts inside of themselves. Something that they're truly they are in their thing. They're in their power when they are listening to, and they're honoring and activating their gifts. And one of mine was I love people, and I love seeing the potential in people, and I love seeing people realize their potential and then start to activate it. And I think people need support with that. This can be a really tough world. And there's a lot of pressure, and there are a lot of things that are pointing people in the wrong directions, like towards money and whatever, fame and a bunch of crap, excuse my language.
Yeah, all the people, all the
a
stuff
bunch of
people
BS
look for,
that they think is gonna fulfill them, but it's really just distracting them and making their egos bigger, which distracts them even further. And I went back to school, and one of the assignments that I had from a professor was, you need to write a research paper on something in psychology related to improving something. And so I went back to the professor and I said, what do you mean? Improve what? And she said, memory. And I thought, geez, I'm thinking Max. I said, I prefer to forget. So no. And I said, I'm not interested in improving memory. So that doesn't intrinsically make me come alive. That doesn't intrinsically make me passionate. And so
neither for me.
No, no, not with memory.
Not with memory, no.
What for you what would you be interested in? How could you improve something?
Oh, happiness. Happiness is my thing.
Yeah, I hear you. And at the time I felt like, what am I? And then I had the same answer. I just sat and I thought for a while, and I thought, I'm interested in learning how to scientifically become happier. Yeah. And so I just Googled, and this is back in 2005. I Googled happiness, science, increase. And up came Martin Seligman's book, Authentic Happiness, and I bought it. And from the first page, I felt like, oh my God, there's a science for what my heart feels. Wow. And that was it. I was smitten with what he invented. So thank you, Marty.
Yeah, you actually worked with him later, right?
I did. I was really fortunate to get to study under him in grad school, and I got to do some research with him on the proposed character strength of patience.
Oh wow. That's interesting. That must have been so exciting.
Oh yeah, it was.
So, like,
I mean, I always
with
wanted
the person that like kind of helped you through that, like.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Geez, you know, I was so inspired that a human could conceive of a science about matters of the heart and matters of the soul, and because that makes me come alive, and to find ways to measure it and to help millions of people. It was such a gift to be able to to learn from him. So I'm very grateful.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much amazing stuff out there in positive psychology that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
Like most people just don't know that there's like a science and there's things that you can do to actually become happier.
Yeah.
And that was really the main takeaway for me. Like, for me, that person, like your Martin Seligman, for me was Tony Robbins that like first got me into this.
What if he...
Actually, my goal with this podcast is to interview him one day. Like that is
to interview Tony Robbins.
Yeah. Like one day I'm gonna do it, and that's when I know like I'm making it.
Cool.
I made it. Like
just keep your eye on that prize. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure. And in a couple of years from now, or decades if necessary, I'll
knows?
Get him,
maybe in a month. You never know. You never know.
That might be a little tricky, but
never know.
So you're the first person here to hear on this podcast.
You know what? I really think if you can conceive what your mind can conceive of is a big deal, because it creates your goals. It informs you about your hopes. Yeah. And if you believe, your mind can conceive of it, I think usually it's possible.
Oh, for sure. No.
So I'm on it. You better let me know as soon as you hook that interview up.
I will. You'll be the first person to know. Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. That's so interesting. So then actually that was really fascinating to me. Like while you were still an undergraduate student, you actually started this happiness course at UCLA. So how did that happen? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah. So, well, when I found this about positive psychology, I mean, I started reading anything I could get my hands on. I was hungry, and UCLA didn't have a course on positive psychology. And I thought, this is really weird. This is the #1 ranked psychology school in the country. How do they not have a course on this important topic? Because again, it's just information. We get to learn about abnormal psychology, cognitive psychology, sensory and perception, memory. But what about the good stuff?
Yeah, right. We'll have to get through all the stats and
all
that crap.
I'm sick of all the research methods. Come on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, well, I ended up learning in my third year at UCLA that there was a program that UC Berkeley had initiated called the Undergraduate Student Initiated Education Program, where if a student could prove to the executive academic committee that they had sufficient, according to them, knowledge of a certain topic that the university did not offer, and this student could get a mentor who was a professor to oversee everything. And if the student could create a syllabus with readings and exercises, X, Y, and Z, then they could teach this course. So I was really excited. I thought, why not? I'm going to try. And so I put together a course, and I was really inspired by a course I had taken at UCSD by a professor named Nicholas Christianfeld. He teaches a course on positive psychology, and I really loved the way he taught that class, and he made me think a lot. And I thought, geez, I wish I could offer something like this. And so I put something together, and I was really lucky to find Ben Carney, who's a professor at UCLA, who was willing to mentor me. And we proposed it, and it was accepted. And so I got to teach. And then I then got to learn that I fell in love with teaching. Now, I didn't know that I was going to love teaching.
Oh, yeah.
I knew that I would love one-on-one being a therapist. Like I knew I'd love that. But teaching, I didn't know. And man, did I fall in love. Whoa. Oh, I love
Yeah, really? Yeah, I mean, you're still doing it, right?
I am. And now I get to teach. Yeah. I teach the course. Now I teach for UCLA Extension, so anybody from the general public can take it from anywhere in the world because it's online. And then I teach another course in Munich.
Yeah, which we just found out isn't far away, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I told you before, right? Like Simon's gonna be in German this interview.
Yeah,
but...
yeah, right. Because I live in Germany, so that's. But we'll save our German for another podcast.
Yeah, that's true. No need for that. No.
I don't think that my German language skills would do anything right.
No, I guess it's a hard, especially in psychology, it's hard to talk about in German. But
oh boy.
Anyways, yeah, we'll leave that for some other time. So, what are some of the key takeaways from positive psychology that you've learned over the years?
Oh boy, geez, that is a big question. Well, I think that it's important to understand how emotions work. I think it's important to because we are thinking, feeling beings and constantly feeling and constantly thinking. And if you're just caught up in your thoughts and caught up in your feelings, then you can never actually become a master of them, actually. And I think that's really important to be able to direct how you respond, how you choose to think, feel, react in any situation. And so if you don't understand that, if you feel one negative emotion at the beginning of the day, then it's primed you actually to see things more negatively. That's important information. And your body's going to keep going with that, and your brain is going to keep going on with that. And it's a spiral, and it goes down. And same with positive emotions. If you know how they work, that number one, they're contagious. So, if you spend time laughing every day, like watch your favorite comedian every day for 5 minutes and put some joy into your body intentionally, put some humor in. And then you are priming yourself to see what's possible in the world, rather than what's impossible. And so I think that's really important, because people don't realize that how they feel really can indicate what they think, and how you think can really lead to how you end up feeling. And all these things lead to how you take action, the decisions you make. And, our life is a bunch of decisions. Yeah, so I think emotions is really important. I also think that understanding motivation is important, but I don't know that information comes from positive psychology. I think, that comes from motivation research.
For sure. So outside of watching funny videos, like getting yourself to smile, and I know you talked about gratitude before. Do you have any other strategies that you use on a consistent basis to feel happier, to really prime yourself for those positive emotions?
Yeah, well, look, when I was first playing around with positive psychology interventions and experimenting with them, I definitely found that gratitude. I think gratitude is kind of the end all be all. I mean, there is always something to be grateful for, and if you can't find it,
yeah, so true.
Look deeper, because the fact that you get to drink a glass of water that is clean is a gift. The fact that your finger moves is a gift. The fact that you can feel sadness is a gift, and the fact that you can feel joy is a gift. So all these things that people take for granted they're gifts. We don't have to have a life. We don't have to be here alive. But I think that one of the biggest things that I practice, and I think that this is something that I have seen dramatic shifts in my own life and in my clients' lives, is to practice two things in tandem: self-acceptance and self-love. I wake up in the morning and I immediately first off check in with my body. And I just do kind of a sensory sort of go through my toes up to my head. What do I feel? What am I feeling? Do I feel tension? Do I feel energy? Do I feel like I need rest? And then I ask myself, I kind of turn inward, I go quiet, and I turn inward, and I ask the little girl version of myself, who I think is extremely much wiser than I am. Because, as we become adults, we can get all sort of skewed in the mind, and so I think she's really kind of the purest version of myself and the most honest, has the most honest vision inside of her about who she is and what she believes in. And so I check in with her and I say to myself every morning, what do you need and how can I love you more today? And whatever she tells me to do, I do it. So sometimes she'll say to me, listen to Depeche Mode. Like, I don't know, I never know what she's going to say. Sometimes she says, hold the door open for someone. Sometimes she says, go for a run. I don't know. I never know what's going to come out, but I listen, and I listen to that quiet voice inside, because it's always there and it's always telling me what it needs. And I think that when a person actively seeks to accept all parts of themselves, don't try to deny any part of yourself, because it's a gift. You're made that way for a reason. There's a reason. It's going to come in useful at some point. I never thought acting could come in useful in my psychology. And it taught me something that no matter how many psychology classes you take, no matter how many good schools you go to, compassion is something you learn in life, not from a textbook.
That is very true.
So, learning to be compassionate towards the self is important, and accepting all parts of yourself and then celebrating it, finding a way to celebrate the shadow parts, the light parts, all of it. That's what I suggest. Accept yourself and love yourself. And that's what I practice, and it never leads me to the wrong place.
I love that. That sounds great. So yes, we were to talk before, you're working in Munich right now, also teaching a course on creating meaningful work. So what are some principles that people should know about that they could use to actually be happy and more productive at work?
Well, first off, I think that you got to ask yourself, number one, you got to be very clear on what you're curious about in life. What makes you come alive? Really, what makes you come alive? What would you do for free? I knew that I would give advice and help people try to find and activate their potential for the rest of their lives. I knew I'd do that for free. So I think it's important to figure out, what work would I do for free? Like, if money weren't an issue, what would I do? Because ultimately you can make a lot of money doing what you love.
Yeah, that is true. Right? Like, really, nearly every profession, I think, has the opportunity to make money. Like, if you love what you do and you're willing to actually get great at it, the best people in any profession get rewarded, right? So, like, at the end of the day, I think choosing what you love, no matter what it is going to reward you, even financially. Plus, you are happy.
And that's what matters, is that are you doing what you love? Because if you're in work that you don't love, or you don't find meaning or purpose in, but you're making money, like, what is that? What?
There's no point in that. No, I mean, if you're wasting 60 hours a week working a job that you hate,
what are you alive for? It's like literally being a slave to money, or being a slave to paying bills. And then I would say
that is true.
There's some money stuff to look at inside that person. And I have my students, they have to engage in something called a money story, where I make that a big topic of the course, because many people make decisions about the work they're going to do based on money. And if only they knew the research that, right? As long as your basic needs are met, you're good to go. And that actually more money can cause more stress, but at the end of the day, it's again, are you a slave? Like, is money that important? And if it is to you, great, go do that, whatever, but it's possible to do what you love, and then the money just comes, honestly. And sure, you got to make good decisions, and you're gonna fall on your face sometimes, but you do what you love, and I the rest works itself out. It really does. It really does. And so I think that it's just really important to get really clear on what are you endlessly curious about? Like, what could you keep learning about when you're 72? You know, like I look at my dad and like, he could work forever. He's fascinated by the human body. He's a doctor. And like my mom's a librarian and she loves books and she'll just can continue to learn and learn from reading books, and she never gets sick of it. And I love learning about people. I never get sick of it. And I know that every human is different. So it's going to constantly fascinate me. And I think human life is important. So if you can really find, what am I curious about, endlessly curious about, and what makes me come alive? Like, when am I feeling like I'm at my best? When do I get to share the thing inside of me that I want to share, that I know I'm good at? And that's not being cocky. That's just knowing what you're good at. And look, and you know a lot, you got to know what you're not good at too. That's really important.
Yeah. That's just really looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, what do you love, and then kind of determining from that, like, what is it that like makes me come alive every single day of my life, right? Exactly.
And breaking out of how we're trained culturally and what culture thinks you should do and not do and all that. What a bunch of BS.
I totally agree.
Listen to yourself. You know what makes you come alive. You know what's going to make you fulfilled. People are wiser than they think. They know. Just listen. You got to listen. And that's that little person inside, that you've got to check in with every morning. It knows. So
yeah, you just got to be willing to open yourself up for that and really be willing to listen, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I have I have my students go through exactly like what you're saying. And I have them go through, kind of take an inventory of what do they love doing when they were kids, because people are not as complicated when they're kids. Our cognitive capacities, our emotional capacities are not as complicated. They're not as dynamic because our brains are still growing. So kids just do what they want to do because they enjoy doing it. They don't do it for any ulterior motive or to make money, or they do things because they enjoy it. And that's the research with the character strengths, is do it because you enjoy doing it. And so when you figure out, what do I enjoy doing? I just enjoy it. If you enjoy hitting baseballs, hit baseballs. If you enjoy playing dress up, figure out a way to play dress up every day and get paid. Really, it's like, think about that kid inside. That kid knows a lot. So, yeah. Activate that.
I love that. So for everyone listening right now, write that down, write down those questions, really take the time to answer that, because I think that's so powerful, really finding out like, what is it that you want to do in your life for every single day, right?
Exactly. What makes you come alive? What makes you smile? Work doesn't have to be work, like, I don't like this. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I'm working on making this my work here, right? Like doing this podcast, coaching people. Like, that's exactly what I love.
And I can see you, Max. Like, we're looking at each other right now. You're alive in this.
I'm having an amazing time.
There's energy flowing through you. That's information. What we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me, like, do more, like, do this.
And I think like people should not expect themselves to know right away. Always, like, some people, right away, and some don't, and that's totally normal. I didn't know right away. I went through so many different things before I figured out, oh wait, this is what makes me come alive. This is what it is. I first went to college to be a baseball commentator in Boston. Like, I love baseball. I'm a big sports fan.
Wow,
okay. But then I realized, like, wait a second. If I have to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers when I'm 40, I'm going to get really bored. Like back in the 90s, the Milwaukee Brewers.
You weren't feeling that?
I thought, this is going to be so boring if I got to talk about them. And I don't want to be bored. So I got to switch this up. But, like, just getting clear on what makes you come alive. And it's okay. Not everything is going to stick, and that's okay. It's like the pasta on the wall. You can tell when spaghetti is done, you throw it up on the wall and they don't always stick, but all the information you learn along the way is going to be helpful. Somehow later it's going to be helpful. So trust that.
I totally agree. And I think one of the things that I realized, sometimes it can be so specific. Like, I was working on like personal development stuff for like 2 years now, right? I was shooting videos, I was writing blog posts, and that was fun. but it wasn't like my life's work, right? Like now that I started a podcast, starting reaching out to people and really talking to people every day, like on this podcast, it's just so much fun. Like it gives me so much incredible energy. So I've really finally found, I think, this thing that like I just love doing. And so
cool,
really
Max.
just being like willing, I think, to like look, and even once you find a smaller niche, then maybe even going a little bit smaller and seeing like that specific thing.
Yes.
And trying to do it like every single day, like the one thing that you love, and seeing like how you can use that.
Exactly. I love it. And you're making me think of something. The way you describe how your experiences with creating this podcast, it's making me think of something about, when you find that thing that you love. Another way of saying that is follow the energy. Follow the energy in your life. Like, where do you feel a lot of energy? Do that. Follow it, because that's where you start to that's where your magic is. And everyone's got some magic in them, And so when you follow that energy of what feels, it feels electric, it feels magical, it feels dynamic, it feels passionate, follow that.
Love that. I absolutely love that.
It's information.
Everything's information, so just take it in. Yeah, for sure. So, Emily, if you could meet anyone from history, whether living or dead, who would it be and what would you say to them?
What a question. This is a tough question to answer. How do I pick
I know one? It is, but I always get some great answers.
Okay. Honestly, does the person have to be famous? Because I'd pick my husband.
That's,
he's my favorite person in the whole world. Like, I feel so grateful.
That is amazing.
Every moment I get to be with him. But... do you want somebody that other people know?
No, I mean, I'm totally cool with that.
I mean, I get
that's a great answer.
He makes me think. He makes my heart expand. He challenges me. He's the most compassionate being I've ever met. And so, I mean, I could go on and on, but I just follow the energy. I like being with him. Yeah, right?
You know what? Now I want to meet him too now.
Yeah, so
sounds great.
I mean, there are so many people though that I would also love to have a meal with. But but he's my number one for sure.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. So, how has a failure, an apparent failure in your life, set you up for later success? So, do you have a favorite failure that really helped you kind of catapult your life forward afterwards?
Yes. Okay, when I got out of grad school, I had to find a job, and I wanted to find a job too. And there's a difference between have to and want to in life,
Oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure. Have to never gets you anywhere.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's not a reason to do anything, right? That's not the right reason to take action. But we can get into that later. But I took a job at a rehabilitation facility in Philadelphia, and it was a residential rehab facility for women who were mothers and they were mentally ill, and they had drug addiction as well. So there were a lot of comorbidity, and they could bring up to 5 of their children to live there with them.
Wow.
And these were women who were really suffering. And some of them had been suffering since they were in their mother's womb, because some of their mothers were drug addicts while they were in utero. And then these children then are born, these women who are now mothers are then born with a drug addiction. And so I worked there for a little bit, and I found it really tough. I bet. I mean, these women were really, I think, doing the best they could, and it was a mess. And I mean, and this is a bigger sort of social policy issue in the United States, but I really wanted to help them. And the depth of the problems and the suffering was so deep, and it was so dynamic. There was so much crossover going on, that it was positive psychology. It was tough, there bringing that in. These were sharp women who had seen a lot, and telling someone to be happy doesn't work.
Yeah, that's all of the time when science kind of finds its boundaries, right? And it's really about that
Exactly,
emotional
Max.
human
Exactly
connection.
about that human connection. And science does have its boundaries and limits, and it does the best it can, but how do you measure human connection, and how do you measure these matters of the heart? We try with science, but it's not enough, and that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. Just do the best we can. But so here's the deal: when I was working there, I had a hard time keeping up, and because I really enjoyed being in one-on-ones and in group, again, kind of like teaching with these women, but there was a lot of paperwork. And look, let me be honest here. I'm not into the paperwork, okay?
Yeah.
And it was like a bunch of BS, red tape, bureaucratic stuff because it was funded by the government. And I just couldn't keep up with the paperwork, to be honest. And, but more so, I would leave every day with a lot of anxiety, so much anxiety. And I would call my dad, and we talked. And my dad, since I was a young girl, would really try to help me identify for myself and highlight for me and kind of reflect back to me what my strengths were. And, we really talked through what was going on with that. I was having a lot of anxiety working there. And he said to me, if you could do anything, what would you be doing? And I said, I think I'd be teaching, actually. And I said, I would really like to be teaching again at UCLA. And so I went back to the rehabilitation facility, and I asked to speak to the director who was in charge of everything. And she was a lovely woman and really compassionate woman, tough and really compassionate at the same time. And I said to her, look, I don't think this is the right fit for me. I said, I leave here every day with anxiety, and I know a little bit about how to manage anxiety, but something is off. And I said, what I've seen is that I'm going to have to, in order for me to stay working here, I would have to shut off my heart from feeling, because the level of pain that exists here is so deep. And the only way to get through the massive amount of work that's being asked of me would be to shut off my heart and stop feeling. And I said, and I'm unwilling to do that. I think my heart is my greatest gift. I was born with a really, that's what makes me want to do this work. How could I shut it off? Because I did notice that the people that worked there, their hearts were pretty shut off. And and that didn't feel right to me. I didn't feel that I should have to shut my heart off. And I didn't feel like the women that were living there, that were seeking help, should have been with someone whose heart was shut off. These women, a lot of why they were suffering in life was because they had shut off hearts dealing with them their whole lives. But that said, it did teach me that this was not the right population for me to work in, at least at that time in my life. And the director of the company, or of the organization, said, I agree with you. She said, Emily, I actually think, I think you have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever seen, but I think it's too big for this job.
Wow.
So look, it's like a good thing of your heart. And then there's a curse side to it, Yeah. So it's like, you got to know yourself, really know yourself, and what you can and can't do, or what's aligned for you, I should say.
Yeah. So really find that thing that actually is right for you and actually works well for you.
Yeah. But I felt kind of a little bit at first like a failure, because this is my first job out of grad school. And I thought, geez, I couldn't handle this, but that was not me talking to myself in the most, I think, logical or resilient and even philosophically wise way. Great learning experience, because it taught me so much about what was aligned for me for work and what was not. And it helped lead me to going and teaching for UCLA.
Do you feel like you're doing this thing now that you want to do for the rest of your life, or several decades at least?
Wow. Well, I love teaching, so I can't imagine not teaching. And and my work with my clients, my individuals, yes. I love that work. I can't imagine not doing that for the rest of my life as well. I think, the artist in me is also quite alive, and she works on some, I work on different sort of other projects that are related to psychology and that, creativity.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, I think that, I'll be creating more artistically as well, sort of, but that is practical, useful things for people to use to help them get aligned with their true selves so that they can, live a life that's meaningful and full and magnificent, to be honest, that they go, this is how I want to live. So I'm interested in helping people live the lives they want to live and teaching it, talking to people, one-on-one in my practice, and then creating like activities and stuff for people. I'm in process of that as well. Sort of like,
Wow.
products, I guess. I don't know what you want to say.
Helping people live the life they want to live. I mean, what a job description. Now, Emily, before I ask my final question, where can people connect with you online if they want to learn more about you and your work?
Well, they can find me. Well, I have my website, which is...
I'll be linking to that as well.
Okay, because my last name is hard for... Well, at least in Germany now, it's easy for people to say. So emilyvanSonnenberg.com, and then you can email me. Those are the main places.
What does mental mastery mean to you?
Mental mastery to me means knowing the self. So what inspires you? What motivates you? What encourages you? What sets you free? What locks you up? I think becoming untriggered in life. Like if you find yourself reacting to things a lot, great information, because it's telling you that things trigger you. And I think that the more you know yourself, the more you become untriggered by what everyone else is doing, because it's not about you. People do things for their own reasons. If you know how to direct your mind, if you know how to access the feelings inside that you want to feel, if you know how to create the experiences in your life that you want to create, then you are really mastering the self. So I think know yourself. Don't be afraid to go into the dark and the light and all of it and embrace it all, because it's all part of you. So I think mental mastery is knowing the self and then knowing how to activate whatever part of whatever you want to experience as a result of that.